I was wondering with, I know this, you didn't write this script or whatever, but like with your other work, I was wondering, because you're also write them, do you, like, with your movies, they're very visually oriented and they're very about like telling the story in the most visual way possible, which is, you know, not like that anymore. Like a lot of movies aren't like that now. But I was wondering, like, do you think about that stuff while you're writing the script, or do you kind of like do the story first and then you try to figure out how's the most visual way you can make that story?
Well, I'm very much a fetish person, and I make films based on things I would like to see. So, for example, on Drive, I wanted to see a man who drove around at night in LA listening to classic pop songs of the 80s. So that was kind of how everything was built around. And then I went back and I then designed the script together with Hussein Amini, who was adapting it from Universal, who was a really great writer, and was I wanted to work with me on it still, because he had found a very good way to structure the film in a more accessible way, where the book is very unaccessible because it jumps in times and back and forth. But I wanted to make a big commercial movie as much as I could, so I needed to find a very linear, accessible story, and he had been very clever in doing that, so I wanted him to work with me. But so it was like taking what I liked and then seeing it from what I would like to see, and then just limiting things I didn't like dialogue.
Who do you think would win in a fight, Mads Mikkelsen or Ryan Gosling?
That's a very good question. If you ask Mads Mikkelsen, he'll say him. And if you ask Ryan Gosling, he'll say him. And I will probably say whoever is my best alter ego.
I'd say Tom Hardy.
Well, Tom Hardy, yeah.
When you were doing the takes of Ryan Gosling in the car, did you have it planned out, this is the scene between, when he is in the garage and when he goes to kill this guy? Or did you just do take upon take upon take of, not B-roll, but of Ryan Gosling and going all through these different emotions, specifically when he's just in the car by himself?
Well, I shoot my films in chronologically order. And all my other films are shot like completely chronologically ordered. This was shot chronologically, emotionally ordered, at least, because I didn't have a lot of money to make the movie with, so it would cost me more to do exactly chronologically. But I was able to structure it financially so I could shoot the movie in an emotional structure, so they would always die at the end and so forth. And then the driving scenes, I would find a place of LA, and we would just drive around 4 or 5 times and make different variations. So I had it in between to figure out, because I don't storyboard my films. I don't anything like that. Mostly my films I usually discover things in like the sound post, like, oh, I didn't do that. Oh, that was interesting. I mean, I like to constantly mold the movie all the way through until the end. So when for example, the first time I cut the film together, we cut the movie at my house in LA, I cut it into complete incoherent stage, just to see what it was not, and then try to build it from there. Because I mean, if you know what you're going to make from the beginning, it's not that exciting.
Can you expound on the influence Michael Mann had on your film? And also, how did you cast Albert Brooks?
Well, I'm a huge admirer of Michael Mann. I see all his movies whenever I can, and I had never seen Thief until right before we started to shoot, because I felt I should see it, and I really liked it. But I think the biggest inspiration in terms of this film was probably Pretty Woman. This is true, and because I wanted to tell the story like a fairy tale, and then coincidentally a few years ago I started reading Grimm's fairy tales for my eldest daughter, and I was very interested in how they were structured. I thought we should make a movie exactly like a fairy tale, but in a modern day setting, and that's what Pretty Woman actually was able to pull off. very uniquely. So that was like the movie I had in my mind, and then like visual reference, it was more like a Scorpio Rising by Kenneth Anger, which was always kind of been lingering there. And Albert Brooks, I just wanted. I mean, he was my kind of, in America, they always give you these lists of actors. It's like, oh, fuck the list. And I just went, I would like to get Albert Brooks for this film. I think that will work very well. And I'd never met him, so I had to meet him to see if it would work out. And when he came to my house, he was very, he was like a volcano of emotions. So I kind of knew that it was going to be very interesting. Also, he'd never killed anybody, and I felt he wanted to kill somebody. And then we kind of created the whole movie producer character, because I had this idea that Bernie Rose was an ex-movie producer. In the book, they're more just gangsters, but I wanted to have this idea that since, you know, Driver is a stuntman, his nemesis is Bernie Rose, the movie producer.
Last question.
As long as we're talking about Albert Brooks, what's it like to try and direct another director?
Well, you just speak very thoroughly when you tell them what to do. One more.
The first half of the film is very subjective. You're right with Ryan on all the car chases. And then there's a terminal shift, after the robbery, where you're outside the car and kind of switching these kind of subjective point of view, and it's kind of when the movie takes a terminal shift. And can you just talk about handling that shift from one half to the other?
Well, it's because Driver is a man who is conflicted. He is half man, half machine. And he lives by night and by day, but in different worlds, because he's essentially a person who doesn't belong in our society. He is a man of mythology, and in a way he represents other people's needs more than his own. Like for the first half of the movie, Irene needs a human being in her life, and once she's in danger, she needs a hero, and he changes into that. So again, like most of my, well, all my films are about transformation. I've always been very interested in how people go from one part to another part, and the transformation within what happens through that. So the idea was that the driver is essentially a human being, but he's also psychotic. And when he becomes a hero, he has to do psychotic things, because that's what, you know, a superhero does to protect the innocence, the purity of love. And then in fairy tales, when the villains died, they would always die very violently, and very extreme violence. And I could use that to really fluff and champagne the first half, so it was like a John Hughes movie with a head smash.
É, galera,
On that, how about another round of applause?